December 17, 1943. 50 miles off the Dutch coast, 3 Royal Air Force Lancaster bombers pushed through thick cloud cover at 18,000 feet. Ice formed along their wings as gale force winds battered the aircraft. Squadron leader Thomas Harrington checked his watch. They were 3 hours into what should have been a routine night raid over Hamburg. But nothing about this mission had gone according to plan. The crew believed their greatest danger lay ahead at the target, unaware that in less than 30 minutes, all 3 planes would vanish without a trace, becoming one of the war's most perplexing mysteries. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. This is the story of how 3 aircraft and their 21 crew members disappeared without explanation, and how 80 years later, an unlikely discovery by a North Sea fisherman would finally reveal the truth, challenging not only our understanding of what happened that night, but exposing a secret that some hoped would remain buried forever. Flight Lieutenant Edward Teddy Matthews gripped the controls of his Lancaster bomber as another violent gust rocked the aircraft. At 24, Matthews was already a veteran with 18 bombing runs under his belt. The son of a Great War pilot, he had volunteered on his 18th birthday in 1937, certain that another conflict with Germany was inevitable. Now, as part of the elite 617 Squadron, the famous Dam Busters, he led a formation of 3 Lancasters on a classified mission. "Bloody weather's getting worse, sir," remarked Flight Sergeant William Cooper, the navigator seated behind him. "Visibility dropping to near 0. "Keep on heading," Matthews replied. "We've flown through worse." He adjusted his oxygen mask and checked his instruments. The compass was fluctuating wildly, unusual even for North Sea conditions. "Something's not right with the equipment. Radio the others and make sure they're still with us." Cooper attempted to make contact with the 2 accompanying aircraft, Lancaster B for Baker, piloted by Squadron Leader Harrington, and Lancaster G for George, under the command of Flight Lieutenant James Wilson. Both confirmed they were maintaining position, though also experiencing instrument anomalies. The mission had been hastily planned. Intelligence suggested a new German radar installation near Hamburg was capable of detecting Allied bombers at twice the normal range, potentially explaining the unusually high loss rates over northern Germany in recent weeks. The 3 Lancasters carried specialized equipment to locate and photograph the site, flying in advance of the main bombing force scheduled to arrive 3 hours later. On the ground at RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire, Group Captain Harold Wilkinson paced nervously. At 52, Wilkinson had spent most of his career analyzing weather patterns for the RAF. The meteorological reports for the North Sea had deteriorated dramatically since the mission launched, with an unexpected storm system developing off the Danish coast. "Any word from the advance team?" Wilkinson asked the communications officer, Flight Lieutenant Sarah Bennett. At 28, Bennett was one of the few women granted operational clearance for sensitive missions, having previously worked in signals intelligence at Bletchley Park. "Nothing since they reported crossing the Dutch coast, sir," she replied. "The storm's creating significant radio interference. We should have had their position report 10 minutes ago." Wilkinson frowned. "Keep trying. If we don't hear back within the hour, we'll need to consider delaying the main force." Aboard Lancaster G for George, wireless operator Sergeant David Goldstein repeatedly attempted to establish contact with base. A 22-year-old from East London, Goldstein had joined the RAF after his family's home was destroyed during the Blitz. "No response, sir," he reported to Flight Lieutenant Wilson. "Just getting static." Wilson nodded grimly. At 27, he was known for his methodical approach to flying. "Keep trying, and check if you can raise the other 2 aircraft." "I've been trying, sir. Nothing from them either." In the rear gunner position, Flight Sergeant Robert Taylor scanned the darkness behind them. The 19-year-old had lied about his age to join up, haunted by the memory of watching his older brother's ship sink at Dunkirk. Through breaks in the clouds, he could occasionally glimpse the dim formation lights of the other Lancasters. "Sir," Taylor called over the intercom. "Something strange behind us. Looks like lights in the clouds, different from our planes." Wilson strained to look back through the cockpit window. "Could be searchlights reflecting off the cloud base. We're still over water, though." "No, sir. These are moving, like... I don't know how to describe it. Like ball lightning, but organized somehow." In Lancaster A for Apple, Matthews had also noticed the phenomenon. "Cooper, make a note of those lights. Could be some new German detection system." "Already noting it, sir," Cooper replied. "But there's something else. The compass is spinning in complete circles now." Matthews felt sweat forming despite the freezing temperatures. "Check the altimeter. Make sure we're not losing height." That's showing erratic readings too. All instruments are malfunctioning simultaneously. Aboard Lancaster B for Baker, Squadron Leader Harrington made a decision. "This isn't right. We're aborting the mission. Radio the others. We're turning back." His wireless operator, Flight Sergeant Peter Jenkins, attempted to relay the message, but received no confirmation. "Can't raise either aircraft, sir. Radio's completely dead." "Then fire a signal flare. We can't continue in these conditions." A red flare briefly illuminated the clouds around them, but there was no response from the other planes. At RAF Scampton, the tension was mounting. It had now been 90 minutes since the last communication with the advance team. Group Captain Wilkinson had already delayed the main bombing force and now faced a difficult decision. "We have to assume something's gone wrong," he told Bennett. "Alert air-sea rescue. Give them the planned flight path and last known position." "In this weather, sir, rescue boats would be struggling to stay afloat, let alone conduct a search." "I'm aware of that, Flight Lieutenant, but we have 21 men out there." What neither Wilkinson nor any of the crew members could have known was that they were experiencing what later aviation experts would identify as a perfect storm of disastrous conditions. A powerful electromagnetic anomaly, severe weather, and a third factor that wouldn't be confirmed until decades later. In the cockpit of Lancaster A for Apple, Matthews was fighting to maintain control as his aircraft buffeted violently. The strange lights Taylor had reported were now visible through the cockpit windows, pulsing blue-white orbs that seemed to dance around the bomber. "Cooper, what's our position?" Matthews shouted over the roaring engines. "I can't tell you, sir. All instruments are completely useless," the navigator replied, genuine fear in his voice for the first time in their many missions together. In that moment, a blinding flash engulfed the aircraft. The controls went completely slack in Matthews's hands. Lancaster A for Apple began a slow, spiraling descent toward the dark waters below. Similar scenes played out in the other two aircraft. In Lancaster B for Baker, Squadron Leader Harrington ordered his crew to prepare for ditching, though he knew their chances of survival in the freezing North Sea were minimal. In Lancaster G for George, Flight Lieutenant Wilson was attempting a desperate radio call that no one would ever hear. By dawn on December 18, 1943, all three Lancasters and their crews had vanished without a trace. No distress calls were received. No debris was spotted by search aircraft once the weather cleared. The 21 men aboard simply ceased to exist, becoming another tragic statistic in the dangerous air war over Europe. The official report, filed 3 weeks later, attributed the loss to extreme weather conditions and possible enemy action. For the families of the missing men, there wasn't even the cold comfort of a known grave, just the vast emptiness of the North Sea and unanswerable questions. The war continued. Hamburg was bombed repeatedly, The mysterious German radar installation was eventually destroyed by a later raid. Victory in Europe came in May 1945, and slowly the individual tragedies of the conflict, including the loss of the three Lancasters, faded from public memory, overshadowed by the war's enormous overall toll. For most, the mystery of what happened that December night in 1943 was forgotten, but not by everyone. May 12, 2023. 70 miles off the Dutch coast, the fishing trawler Noord Hoop pitched in moderate seas. At the helm, 58-year-old Erik Visser guided the vessel through familiar waters. A third-generation fisherman, Visser knew the North Sea as intimately as anyone alive, understanding its moods, its currents, and most importantly, its secrets. "Nets caught on something," called his first mate Peter de Jong. At 32, de Jong represented the dwindling younger generation, still drawn to the difficult life of commercial fishing. Visser throttled back the engines. "Bottom looks clear on the sonar. Must be debris." Such occurrences were common. The North Sea floor was littered with wrecks, jettisoned cargo, and military remnants from 2 world wars. What happened next would rewrite history. As the crew carefully retrieved the net, they found entangled in the mesh not the usual assortment of discarded maritime junk, but a mud-encrusted metal plate bearing barely legible markings, RAF, and a partial serial number. "Military aircraft," Visser muttered, carefully examining the corroded plate. Having fished these waters for 40 years, he'd occasionally brought up small pieces of wartime debris, but something about this discovery felt different. The location didn't match any known crash sites on their charts. "Mark the coordinates," he instructed de Jong. "We'll report this when we get back." But Visser didn't wait until returning to port. That evening, he used the ship's satellite connection to email photographs to his brother-in-law, Johannes Bakker, a curator at the Dutch Naval Museum in Den Helder. The response came within hours. "Erik, this appears to be from a British Lancaster bomber. The partial serial matches aircraft from 617 Squadron. Don't move from that location. I'm arranging for a survey vessel to meet you." Imbecile. What followed was one of the most remarkable underwater discoveries of the century. The survey vessel, equipped with advanced sonar imaging technology, mapped an area 3 kilometers square around Visser's coordinates. What they found defied explanation. The wreckage of not one, but 3 Lancaster bombers, resting in a near-perfect triangle on the seabed, each approximately 800 meters from the others. News of the discovery spread quickly through military history circles. Within 2 weeks, a joint British-Dutch recovery operation was underway, funded partly by the RAF Museum and supported by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. Leading the British contingent was Dr. Margaret Harrington, a marine archaeologist specializing in military wrecks, and the granddaughter of squadron leader Thomas Harrington, commander of the missing Lancaster B for Baker. "I grew up with his photograph on our mantelpiece," Dr. Harrington told journalists at a press conference announcing the expedition. "My father was only 4 when his father disappeared. Our family never had closure. Now, perhaps, we will." The recovery operation faced significant challenges. The wrecks lay in 81 meters of water, well beyond conventional scuba range, and requiring specialized deep-diving equipment and techniques. The soft silt of the seabed had partially buried the aircraft, preserving them but making excavation delicate work. The first significant breakthrough came when divers recovered the logbook from Lancaster G for George. Sealed in a watertight navigation case, the waterlogged document was carefully transported to conservation laboratories in London. Using advanced imaging techniques, specialists were able to recover Flight Lieutenant Wilson's final entries, 1943, Deck D17, 2014 hours. Experiencing severe electrical malfunctions, unexplained lights surrounding aircraft, 2017 hours. All instruments failed, position unknown. 20 hours, attempting emergency procedures, no response from controls. 22 hours, objects approaching aircraft, not German. God help us. The cryptic final line sent shockwaves through the investigation team. What objects had Wilson observed? The reference to not German suggested something beyond enemy aircraft. Further recoveries from the wrecks included personal effects. A pocket watch belonging to Sergeant Goldstein stopped at precisely 8:23 p.m. Squadron leader Harrington's identification tags, a water-damaged photograph of Flight Lieutenant Matthews' fiancée. Each item told part of the story, but none explained how 3 aircraft could have failed simultaneously or why they came to rest in such a precise geometric pattern. The most significant find came 3 months into the operation. From Lancaster A for Apple, divers recovered a sealed camera case containing undeveloped film. After careful restoration by photographic conservators, the images were finally processed, revealing something that no one had expected. The photographs, taken by the bomber's automated reconnaissance camera in the final moments before the crash, showed the aircraft surrounded by what appeared to be structured, luminous objects. Military analysts were baffled. The objects matched no known German aircraft or weapons from the period. They were roughly spherical, with what seemed to be controlled movement patterns as they encircled the bomber. Within days of this discovery, something unprecedented occurred. Representatives from British, American, and Dutch military intelligence requested access to the photographs. Shortly thereafter, the public release of images was suspended pending further analysis. The recovery operation, previously open to media coverage, suddenly imposed restrictions on reporting. Dr. Harrington found herself fighting to maintain scientific control of the discovery. "These aircraft and the men aboard them have been missing for 80 years, she argued in a tense meeting with officials. Their families deserve to know what happened. The historical record demands it. The response from a senior British intelligence officer was equally firm. There are matters of national security that transcend historical curiosity, Dr. Harrington. Some discoveries have implications beyond their immediate context. For Eric Visser, who had made the initial discovery, the growing secrecy was frustrating. I found those planes by accident, he told Dutch journalists. Now they act like it's some kind of state secret. These were young men who died serving their countries. Their story deserves to be told. The situation might have resulted in a permanent classification of the findings, if not for an unexpected ally. 94-year-old Walter Brooks, the last surviving member of 617 Squadron who had served alongside the missing airmen. Though he hadn't been on the fateful mission, Brooks had been friends with several of the lost crew members. Using his status as a decorated war veteran, Brooks publicly demanded transparency. I'm the last one left who knew those boys, he stated in an interview that went viral online. Whatever happened to them, I want the truth told before I join them. The public pressure worked. 6 months after the initial discovery, a compromise was reached. The recovery operation would continue with scientific oversight, though certain findings would remain classified for 30 years. What was released to the public was remarkable enough. The 3 Lancasters had indeed experienced a catastrophic electrical failure simultaneously. The wreckage showed no signs of combat damage, no bullet holes, no shell fragmentation. Instead, metallurgical analysis revealed unusual patterns of electrical arcing throughout the aircraft structures, as if they had been subjected to an extremely powerful electromagnetic field. More puzzling still was the discovery that all 3 aircraft had landed on the seabed with minimal impact damage. They hadn't crashed so much as descended under some form of control. This suggested the crews had been conscious and functioning until the very end, attempting to ditch their aircraft as safely as possible. The human remains recovered from the wrecks told an even stranger story. The bodies were preserved better than expected after 8 decades underwater, allowing for detailed forensic examination. What the examinations revealed defied conventional explanation. None of the crew members showed signs of drowning or impact trauma. The cause of death for all 21 men was registered as undetermined. For the families of the lost airmen, the discoveries brought long-awaited closure mixed with new questions. Patricia Matthews Cooper, the 98-year-old former fiancée of Flight Lieutenant Matthews, was presented with his recovered wedding ring, still inscribed with their planned wedding date, April 15, 1944. "I always knew something extraordinary must have happened," she told reporters at a memorial service held at RAF Scampton. "Teddy was the finest pilot I ever knew. If anyone could have brought that aircraft home, it was him. Now, I understand it was beyond his control, beyond anyone's control." As historians and scientists continued to study the evidence, several theories emerged to explain the incident. The official report, partially redacted, suggested a rare natural phenomenon, perhaps an intense electromagnetic storm or a localized geomagnetic anomaly that disabled the aircraft's electrical systems and affected their navigational equipment. Other experts pointed to the geographical position. The 3 aircraft had gone down precisely over what would later be discovered as a major geological fault line in the North Sea bed, an area known to produce unusual electromagnetic readings to this day. But these explanations failed to account for the most troubling evidence. The reconnaissance photographs showing unidentified objects around the aircraft, the perfect triangular arrangement of the wrecks on the seabed, and Flight Lieutenant Wilson's final logbook entry referring to objects that were not German. 18 months after Eric Visser's net snagged that first piece of wreckage, a more complete picture began to emerge, though one that many found difficult to accept. The scientific consensus, based on the available unclassified evidence, pointed to an encounter with a phenomenon that defied conventional explanation within the technological understanding of 1943. What made the case particularly significant was the quality of the witnesses, highly trained military air crews, and the physical evidence that corroborated their final reports. The reconnaissance photographs, authenticated by multiple independent analysts, showed objects that matched no known aircraft of the era, moving in ways that contradicted the aerodynamic limitations of 1940s technology. For Dr. Margaret Harrington, the investigation became deeply personal. "My grandfather wasn't just another casualty statistic," she explained in a BBC documentary about the discovery. "He was a rational, highly experienced pilot who encountered something so extraordinary that even 80 years later, we struggle to categorize it within our understanding of the natural world." The most powerful testimony came from the recovered personal letters of the crew members, written in the days before their final mission. These showed no signs of men suffering from combat stress or hallucinations, just ordinary young servicemen doing their duty while dreaming of returning home to their loved ones. Flight Sergeant William Cooper had written to his mother on December 15, 1943, "2 more missions and I'll have completed my tour. The squadron leader says I'll be recommended for a commission afterward. By spring, I should be back home helping Dad with the farm. The fruit trees will be blossoming by then." Sergeant David Goldstein's letter to his sister, dated December 16th, revealed his plans for after the war. "I've been accepted to study electrical engineering at Imperial College when this is all over. Professor Williams says my radio experience in the RAF will give me a head start. Strange to think that this war might actually be preparing us for a better future." These glimpses into lives cut short made the mystery of their fate all the more poignant. Whatever had happened over the North Sea that December night had taken 21 promising young men, each with hopes and dreams that would never be realized. The full truth may never be known. The most sensitive findings remain classified, locked away in military archives. But what cannot be hidden is the human story of courage, of mystery, and of a fisherman's accidental discovery that finally brought answers to families who had waited 8 decades. For Eric Fisher, the experience changed his relationship with the sea he had known all his life. "Every time I sail over that spot now, I cut the engines for a moment, just out of respect," he explained. "The North Sea keeps many secrets. I'm glad I could help reveal this one." Walter Brooks, the last surviving member of 6117 Squadron, attended the memorial service where 3 stone markers were placed at RAF Scampton to honor the lost crews. At 95, supported by his great-grandchildren, he stood at attention as the RAF performed a flyover with a restored Lancaster bomber. "Whatever happened to them out there, they died serving their country," Brooks said afterward. "In war, not all enemies carry guns. Some dangers can't be seen or understood. But courage in the face of the unknown, that's the greatest courage of all." The case of the 3 missing Lancasters remains officially classified as unexplained air loss during combat operations. But for those who have studied the evidence closely, it represents something more profound. A moment when brave men encountered something beyond the conventional understanding of their time, perhaps beyond our understanding even today. The North Sea continues to guard many secrets from 2 world wars. Countless aircraft and ships lie scattered across its sandy bottom, most destined to remain undisturbed. But thanks to one fisherman's net snagging a corroded metal plate, 21 missing airmen have finally had their story told. Their aircraft now rest where they have lain for 8 decades, protected as war graves under international law. The precise coordinates remain restricted to prevent disturbance by unauthorized divers. But on maritime charts, the area is now marked with a simple designation: Lancaster Triangle. Each year on December 17th, RAF aircraft perform a memorial flight over the site, dropping wreaths onto the waters below. And local fishermen report that during storms, strange lights can sometimes be seen dancing above the waves. Though such stories are dismissed as sailors' superstitions. For the families of Flight Lieutenant Matthews, Squadron Leader Harrington, Flight Lieutenant Wilson and their crews, the discovery brought the closure they had long sought. Patricia Matthews Cooper, who never married after losing her fiancé, requested that after her death, her ashes be scattered over the site where Teddy's Lancaster rests. "I promised to wait for him," she said, holding the recovered wedding ring that should have joined them in marriage. "Now, after all these years, I finally know where he is. And someday, I'll join him there." And that concludes our story. If you made it this far, please share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this historical account surprised you most? Don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from World War II and check out the video on screen for another incredible tale from history. Until next time.